All right, now that the July series is done, now that the test matches is over and the season finished now for the Northern Hemisphere teams, well, actually, I say that, Wales have got a game against Queensland Reds and Scotland play Chile. But other than that, it's done. What have we learnt about the Northern Hemisphere powerhouses? And what is the challenges for each team moving forward? This is mainly going to be focused on the home unions. Although when I say that, I'm never confident whether it's okay to call Ireland a home union. So let me just say England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland. That's what this video is going to be focused on. I will touch briefly on France, but your thoughts in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers, and I will have a Southern Hemisphere partner to this video where I'll be looking at the big four teams from the south who are just starting their international season, of course, with the Rugby Championship coming up in a couple of weeks. But let's just have a look at France briefly to start this one then. And we know that their season began with crushing defeat on home soil at the Rugby World Cup. And you can understand why the hangover from that took a little while. And we saw that in the Six Nations. They started slowly, managed to kind of very luckily get that win against Scotland, finished second to Ireland in the end. Good win on home soil, just squeaking through against England. But they've never quite got over that. And now I think the end of the season has come. They can now just wipe the World Cup clean and start again proper. And after this off-season, they'll have Antoine Dupont back permanently now. And one thing we've learned is that guy is a freak, winning the top 14 again and the Champions Cup again with Toulouse. He's an absolute superstar on the Sevens circuit, having never played it before. He's going to light up the Olympics. He is a very, very special player. And when he's not available all the time to France, they miss him. Shock horror. There you go. Well, they've just had a 1-1 series draw with Argentina. Some good matches, actually. France sent their kids, to be honest. So that's another thing we've learned. France have got no lack of talent coming through. Some really talented young players. Emilien Gaiton, the outside centre, really showed up well. He's been around the France squad lately, but hasn't had a proper shot. And who's the other one? Atisogbe, the winger. He looks class as well, the Po winger. And Nushi, the back row player, is a machine. So they've got some good young players coming through. A really, really good squad. The most successful domestic league on the planet. Massive TV deal there, loads of players, and France, I believe, will go from strength to strength. They're in a good place, and like I say, this whole last 12 months has been overshadowed by that quarter-final exit at the Rugby World Cup, which they never quite got over. Your thoughts in the comments down below on France as I move on to England. 2-0 series defeat to New Zealand. However, England are coming away thinking they could and maybe should have won 2 test matches, or at least one of them. And despite a 2-0 series defeat, and I've said this before, and I still stand by it, I'm more positive as an England fan than I have been now. Now than I have been in a long time. And I think Steve Borthwick is doing a good job. With a very simplistic game plan, he got us to within 5 minutes of a Rugby World Cup final. And now expanding it slightly, you're starting to see a cohesive and entertaining team come forward and some really exciting guys. Alex Mitchell there. Being one of them, Marcus Smith starting to play for England like he has done for Harlequins, and that bodes well for the future. The age profile of the team is relatively young in a lot of positions. There are concerns, however. I mean, the fact that they could and arguably should have won at least a game against New Zealand but didn't, added to the fact that they lost narrowly to France in the Six Nations, Scotland. They lost narrowly to South Africa in the World Cup semi-final. There's a trend there that England have to overcome. That their challenge is to turn these defeats into victories. And how do they do that? Well, one area they need to address. There's another picture of England doing really well against Ireland. That was a great day. I was there. No, props. We have to find these props. Finn Baxter, hopefully, pointing the way. A very promising start for him with a couple of tests out in New Zealand. But England have had a long-standing issue. I'm still not convinced about Will Stewart. We don't seem to have anyone else who's going to come through and automatically grab that shirt themselves. Hence, we've still got Dan Cole and Joe Marler, who are great, have been fantastic servants. But we can't keep picking Dan Cole. How long can we keep picking the Koala Bear? So we need a solution. There are promising names like Asher Opoku Fajor, now at Sale Sharks, was at Wasps before they went bust, and will be playing in the Under-20 World Championship final against France. Very promising guy, and there's a lot of young guys like that. But are they going to make the step to international rugby like Finn Baxter has? It could take some time. So I think England are going to have a bit of an issue at front row for the time being. I hope it can be sorted. And on the bench, I think that's one of England's issues. The drop-off in some positions from first choice to second choice is really big. What do we do if Ollie Lawrence gets injured? We might have to change our game plan and play a completely different way, because I don't know that there's anyone that can take that place. Prop, as I say, is another one. Scrum half as well. Alex Mitchell's made the shirt his own, but is the second choice doing enough at the minute to put pressure on him and to have an impact off the bench? England have got some issues to address, but overall, I'm pretty happy. One of the things I'll do on this video is just kind of reference the fact that the British and Irish Lions is in a year's time. It gives us a bit of an indication of how well the teams are doing, both collectively and individually, when you look at players that could make themselves onto a British and Irish Lions tour. So I'm definitely going to touch on that. And when I look at people that could potentially go on a Lions tour from England, I'm thinking Jamie George, Maro Itoje, George Martin, maybe even Ollie Chesham, Sam Underhill, Tom Curry, Ben Earl, Alex Mitchell, Marcus Smith, George Ford, Ollie Lawrence, Henry Slade, Emmanuel Faye-Waboso, Tommy Freeman and George Furbank. Loads of names. And a bunch of those names you weren't even around the England team a year ago. And that is what is really exciting for me. A lot of very good young talent coming through. In terms of a Lions 23, and this is what I'll do. I'll pick the players who I think have a realistic shot as things stand right now. If you were picking a Lions 23 matchday squad for a test match, who would be in the mix? And I've got Maro Itoje, Ben Earl, and either Marcus Smith or George Ford. Those are the three that I think would be in the mix. Maybe in a year's time, George Martin as well. But I love him. But yeah, overall, reasonably happy, while still improvement is needed for England. Ireland, I think the thing we've learned from the recent series in South Africa, which I was there for, obviously, took the channel to, and I was so glad that I made that trip. Not just because South Africa is an amazing country, but because it was such a good, well-matched couple of test matches. South Africa deservedly winning the first, beating Ireland up. But I would say the thing you really learn about Ireland from that second test last week in Durban is they are incredibly well coached. To be without the players they were without and to transform their performance from test 1 to test 2 is a testament to Andy Farrell and his coaching team. It was exceptional. And they are in a better place than I thought they were. When I looked at the end of the Six Nations and you thought back to the World Cup and you looked at this summer and saw no Gibson Park, no Keenan, no Hansen, no Conan. Always forget about Conan. And then Sheehan got injured and Aki got injured. That's 6 serious rugby players right there. And I was concerned about the second test. To do what they did demonstrates they've got it there, but also they've got players coming through in some of those positions that you thought were problem positions. The performance of Craig Casey in that first test can give Ireland fans confidence in life beyond Jameson Gibson Park. Jack Crowley has made the 10 jersey his own, but Kieran Frawley has shown that he should probably be wearing that 10 jersey for Leinster, and he's going to be pushing Jack Crowley for that jersey in the years ahead. Calvin Nash has done really well with no Mac Hansen in the Six Nations and in the test matches against South Africa. Jamie Osborne, future looks good there beyond Aki and Henshaw in the centre, but also you've got a backup for Hugo Keenan. Osborne was brilliant in those 2 test matches, and Caelan Doris is your leader to take the team on. Prop is an issue though. Let's be absolutely honest. Prop is a big issue for Ireland, just as it is for England. In terms of potential Lions, I mean, yeah, there you go. Crowley and Frawley, that's a massive positive. In terms of potential Lions, they're all over the team. And that's the biggest indication that things are still very, very good for Ireland. Porter, Sheehan, Furlong, McCarthy, Byrne, Van der Fleer, Doris, Gibson Park, Ringrose, Aki, Lowe, all of those players. How many did I just say there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players who could all have a realistic shot at starting a test match against Australia, and many others will be in the touring party. Ireland are in a good spot. Better than I thought they actually were. I wondered whether it was going to be a period of decline for Ireland. I think there's lots of cause for optimism. As for Wales, Warren Gatland, what do you make of his strategy? He's clearly gone and said, right, I'm going to pick a team for 2027 and I'm going to blood a load of youngsters. Some of them might not work out, but hopefully in 3 years' time they'll have enough rugby under their belt together that they might be able to do something. They got to a quarter-final of the Rugby World Cup with some of those generational names like Dan Biggar, like Taulupe Faletau, Halfpenny, Lydiate, George North, like legends in Welsh rugby that have won Grand Slams and been part of massive teams. Warren Gatland does not have those resources. I think it's a brave thing that Warren Gatland is doing. I don't think any other coach could get away with it. Because Warren Gatland's had so much success with Wales, he has the freedom to do this strategy that he's doing. Will it pay off? That's the question. How long will the Welsh public stay the course with this? I think there were some positives, even in that 2-0 series defeat to Australia. They seem like they're working really hard, but is the talent there? Is another 20 games in Rio Dyer going to make him a potentially world-class winger? He's got a lot of potential, and there's quite a lot of players like that. I'm not sure, though. Sometimes I think the danger is with young players is you misjudge talent. Just because someone is good at age 21, you imagine in your mind that they're going to keep improving at the same rate throughout their career, and you map onto them what the 28-year-old player, what an amazing world-class player that could be, but quite often it doesn't work out like that. And I think that is the challenge and the difficulty for Wales. Of the current crop, well, if you just think about the players that actually kind of are good enough and could make other international teams, Jack Morgan, definitely, they've been without him this summer, but he's talismanic for this team. Absolutely key part. David Jenkins, Dewi Lake, Tommy Raffel. Those are all guys that I would expect to be in the mix and in the conversation when it comes to a Lions tour. I'm not sure about the others, though. The jury is out on the others. Rio Dyer, I think, has got a lot of potential. It's clear that with what Warren Gatland is doing, he's trying to turn Mason Grady into the next Jamie Roberts, who was a fullback winger when he first started, then became a barnstorming inside centre. And a lot of people are questioning Mason Grady shouldn't be playing 12, but I think Warren Gatland's trying to create another Jamie Roberts. We'll see if it works. High risk. I mean, they've got big issues. Fly half, scrum half, props. And I don't think they're going to be solved too quickly. Lions tourists, Dewi Lake, Jack Morgan, Tommy Raffel, maybe David Jenkins. And I think Dewi Lake and Jack Morgan could potentially make a Lions 23. I think that would be a decent return for Wales. We'll have to see on them. So how do you feel? I mean, they lost all their games in the Six Nations, five losses, 9 defeats in a row now, and yet the players seem like they're kind of together. Is that enough to kind of keep your optimism there? Are they going to turn a corner? I don't know. I think it could get worse before it gets better for Wales. Finally, Scotland, and I mean, we don't really know anything more about them from their summer tour. Have you watched any of it? Honestly, USA, Canada, those games? I haven't. Actually, I think one thing you can say for it, with this having been a long season with the Rugby World Cup right up to now, it's, a full, 13-month season basically when you think the World Cup warm-up games. I think there's something to be said for the tour that Scotland have had. It must have been difficult being a Scotland fan, watching all these big matches and not really being on the radar, but those players will have had a proper tour, off the radar, no cameras everywhere. They'll have got to know each other really well, had lots of nights out together, won the games comfortably and played hard, but they'll have played hard off the pitch as well. And I think that could be the best thing for Scotland because, I think probably the biggest story in Scottish rugby is nothing that happened on the international turf. I mean, they'll be disappointed with the Six Nations. It could so easily have been very, very different with the Six Nations. They had those 2 wins against England and Wales, but those 3 narrow defeats, that painful defeat at home to France, narrow defeat away in Ireland, and then they kind of self-imploded a bit against Italy. But it could very easily have been 5 wins. And when you dovetail that with the fact that Glasgow actually showed the kind of steel that when you think of Scotland, they lose games they should win, and they might win the odd one that you don't expect them to. They can blow a bit hot and cold. Actually, the beauty of the Glasgow win in the URC and the hope for Scotland is they managed to back up back-to-back wins through that playoff in really tough places. They beat the original champions, the Stormers, at home. They went to Munster and won away, and then they went to Pretoria and won when all of the excuses had already been written. Altitude, travel, up against a team stacked with Springboks, and they managed to win in Pretoria. That is the kind of steel that, if it can be translated to Scotland, they will go places. Because here's the next thing. When I look at potential Lions tourists for Scotland, there are loads. They have got so much talent. I've got Pierre Schoeman, Xander Fagerson, they'll both go. Scott Cummings, another second rows could go. Rory Darge in the back row, Fagerson, Dempsey, Ben White and George Horner in the mix. Tuipulotu and Jones and Finn Russell, of course. Blair Kinghorn, Duan van der Merwe, Kyle Stain, Darcy Graham, and there are others. All of those players could absolutely, and arguably in most cases should, make the Lions tour. As for a Lions 23, if I were picking it, I think Schoeman, Fagerson, Xander Fagerson, Tuipulotu, Kinghorn are all in the mix for a starting jersey, or definitely in the 23. And I think one at least of their wingers could well be there as well. Scotland are in a good place. I think, if they can channel that kind of belligerence of that Glasgow team, that defensive energy, and string results together, they are a real force. So there you go. There's my thoughts on those 5 teams. Apologies to Italy. I didn't see any of their rugby over this July window, so I'll come back to them another time. And as I say, a video coming on the 4 big rugby championship teams from the Southern Hemisphere as well. Their season just getting going, but nonetheless, there are some lessons and deep dives we can do into those. If you appreciate the content on the channel, then I would love it. I would appreciate you if you give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and absolutely hit subscribe. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the next one.